Hey everybody, welcome to X-Oriente, the new voice of Brotherhood.
Hi, everybody.
I am one of your hosts, Eric Diamond.
I'm your other host, Jason Van Dyke. Which, by the way, I came in hot like Dr. Nick. Hi, everybody. Sorry, sorry about that.
uh, so today, um, by the way, I'm a little bit behind. If you noticed, if you're following along on the feed of getting some stuff up on the feed, that's because last week my mic was very hot and I had to do a lot of post production just to get it to be intelligible. But this time I have a checklist and I followed the checklist. So hopefully, knock
Wow,
wood,
look at you,
fingers crossed.
like
I
a
know,
pilot,
I
like a
know,
pilot.
like a pilot.
Turn it up. You know why? Because you're that pleasing. I turned it up.
So today we're going to talk about a topic that we talk a lot about, but we've never really delved into it, and that is the topic of Masonic Light. Initial thoughts?
Um, I think that I don't think that we've ever directly addressed it, but I think that you're right. I think that we talk around it a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I think we talk around it almost every episode. So there.
So what is it?
I think it is. It's akin to revelation.
Uh huh.
Oh, big word. It is. Man, I'm trying to think of all the words that I could use. I hesitate to
It's
say.
tough, isn't it? It's tough. It's
Yeah,
one of those
it's
things
really
like
hard, right?
you assume you know what it is.
Right, but realization isn't a strong enough word, right?
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going with it?
Yeah.
Like realization is not strong enough. Revelation is a little too much, but it's closer. Trying to think. There's another word, epiphany, but that might be a little too far. It feels too. An epiphany is something that's sudden, right? This isn't sudden, really. Masonic light is something that kind of gathers in
Uh
you.
huh.
So it wouldn't be an epiphany. It's a lot harder. You're right. That's a
This is why I was all right. So here's the background of why we're talking about this tonight. So
yeah.
last weekend, I was lucky enough to spend a good portion of the weekend with a guy that, if you're a serious student of Kabbalah, you should know this name, but Dr. Daniel Matt. And Dr. Matt was the guy who translated, I think, 10 of the 12 volumes of the Pritzker Zohar. So and the other two kind
Jeez.
of, yeah. So the other two were kind of on his watch.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, and he's a pretty impressive guy. Like he's, I mean,
I'm only halfway through my first Zohar, personally.
like the first volume. Are you doing that?
I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
It's my
Sorry.
translation gig, on the side.
Yeah. So
Good God, man.
yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it was pretty
Like
cool. So we hosted him as a scholar in residence
that's cool.
at our synagogue.
And he a Mason?
No,
Oh,
no,
interesting. Okay. All right.
no. He's extra Jewy, but not like
He's extra
he's
Jewy.
not super orthodox or anything. He's just but he's very scholarly.
Okay. All right. Sure.
But and he does these talks. Like you can watch him on YouTube. Like he's got a YouTube channel and he's got a bunch of his
Yeah.
lectures up there. And I think he has these sort of talks in a can that he kind of goes around the country and gives these talks on
hmm
various aspects of the Kabbalah.
Okay.
But there were some things that he, in some of the handouts that he gave us and in some of the stuff that he read,
hmm
that was just like, it's kind of like Blazing Saddles, right? Like Blazing Saddles is funny, but if you're Jewish, it's funnier, right? Because you get all the in jokes. So with this, right?
Okay.
If you were a Jewish, it was fine, but if you were
hmm
Jewish and a Mason,
hmm
it was mind blowing, right?
Okay.
And
All
so we're
right.
going to
Yeah,
get
sure.
to some of that stuff. But
Okay.
so I started thinking about it because there's
Yeah.
this, you know, the whole thing of the idea of light. I mean, Kabbalah, it's light is
Yeah.
everywhere, right? So
Sure.
the word Zohar itself means brilliance, right?
Right.
Like
Mm-hmm.
a spreading of
Mm-hmm.
light. So
Correct.
it's kind of an interesting thing. So what I did is I went through and grabbed some sort of Masonic references to
Mm-hmm.
what I think, you know, light might be. The first place I went was good old Mackie,
Oh, first
right?
stop shop.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so I looked up the Masonic Light entry in Mackie,
Mm-hmm.
and I found these three things. So first he says, light is an important word in the Masonic system. It conveys a far more recondite meaning than is believed to possess by the generality of readers. Man, he has a way with words that's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
just such a dick.
it is, it is in fact the first of all the symbols presented to the neophyte, and continues to be presented to him in various modifications throughout all his future progress in his Masonic career. It does not simply mean as might be supposed truth or Sodom, but it contains within itself a far more abstruse allusion to the very essence of speculative Freemasonry, and embraces with its capacious signification.
God, shut
I
up.
know. All other symbols of the order. Freemasons are emphatically called the Sons of Light because they are, or at least are entitled to, be in possession of the true meaning of the symbol, while the profane or uninitiated who have not received this knowledge are, by a parity of expression, said to be in darkness. And then he said, a little later on, he said, as light was thus adored as a source of goodness, darkness, which is the negation of light, was abhorred as the cause of evil. And hence arose that doctrine which prevailed among the ancients, that there are two antagonistic principles continually contending for the government of the world. And then he says a little later on, light is a source of positive happiness. Without it, man could barely exist.
Yeah, okay. I like the last part.
Maybe, sort of. I mean, I
The
kind of
rest,
feel like
the rest is bloviating.
I kind of feel like he doesn't know what it is either.
No, he absolutely doesn't. And he decided to throw a whole bunch of silver nickel words at it.
It's capacious signification.
Yeah, he's the worst type of 19th century dandy. It's just awful. It's just awful. And to think that back then people would have been like, "Oh, he's such a good writer. He writes with such clarity."
Yeah, no, yeah.
He's like an 8th grader who found his thesaurus. Yeah, I mean, maybe so. I agree with a couple things that he says, right? So I agree with, I think, the most obvious fact that's in what you read, which is that the ancients thought of light as everything that was good and darkness was bad, and that was basically a primitive thing, right? Because if you think back to being a primitive, right? Darkness, there's a lot of stuff that hunts you, and as humans, we're not real good at seeing it in the dark.
Right.
And there are a lot of animals that are really good at it. And so darkness is dangerous for primitive humans, and I think that it's it's sort of a core feeling that we have that will always stay in our amygdala somewhere, right?
Yeah.
In our little lizard brain, be afraid of the dark,
Right.
And so I think that he does a good job there of at least putting out the base, that here the basis for this is that the lightness is good, darkness is bad. It's a really, really, really old equation that human beings have, that we can trace back to the earliest human beings. Okay, I'll buy that.
Okay, so hold on to that, because we'll come back to that idea.
Okay, good. All right.
Later.
Okay.
I then found a guy had written a paper, a Masonic paper called Fiat Lux, Some Thoughts on Masonic Light, and by John Alexander. And in it, he says, every other ritual for the high and sublime degree that I've ever read or seen work contains the statement, I beg you to observe that the light of a master mason is darkness visible. The light of a master mason is darkness visible. I put it to you, brethren, that this is the most accurate description of Masonic light you will ever find. It's darkness visible.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10 points.
And I went and I checked.
And who is that? Wait, go back. Who is that? Who is that? Was that from?
This is from a guy by the name of John Alexander.
Okay.
And so that really intrigued me. And the first place I went to, of course, was the the Illinois Monitor, right? And of course, it was in there. And I don't have other monitors from the other grand jurisdictions that I belong to, but I'm willing to bet that they also appear there.
Right.
And then there were a couple things that he kind of continues. He says that the light of a master mason is darkness visible, serving only to express that gloom which rests upon the prospects of futurity. It is that mysterious veil which the eye of human reason cannot penetrate unless assisted by the light which is from above. Yet, even by this glimmering ray, you may perceive that you stand on the very brink of the grave into which you have just figuratively descended, and which, when this transitory life will have passed away, will again receive you into its cold bosom. So I think there he's just sort of saying that the light basically reminds us of our own mortality, which I think is kind of weird.
Yeah, that is strange.
And then he says, men are said to be in pursuit of knowledge. They are said to search for knowledge. They are said to be on a quest for knowledge. They describe themselves as seekers after knowledge. All these idioms suggest the same thing, that the knowledge already exists, but men haven't found it yet. No man says that he has created knowledge, for of course he cannot. So I think what he's doing is he's sort of building a case that light is knowledge.
Okay.
From a Kabbalistic perspective, I have a bit of a quibble with that, which is that there is a sort of in the 10 Sfirot, right, of the tree of life, there is sort of a virtual Sphira called Da'at, which means knowledge. And Da'at, the reason it's sort of it's not really listed on most of the diagrams that you would see with the tree of life, or if it is, it's like a dotted line, is because Da'at only happens with humans, right? Da'at is a synthesis of Chokhmah, which is wisdom, Bina, which is understanding, Chesed, which is loving kindness, and Gevurah, which is judgment. And when you put all of those things together, what emerges is knowledge, which kind of makes sense, right? Wisdom plus understanding,
right?
Plus love plus judgment,
right? Love being kind of like a stand-in for empathy, right?
Chesed is more the empathy principle. Okay, I think what Da'at is sort of the synthesis of all of those.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And if I'm right, and the tree of life, the Sphirot, is sort of a blueprint of the moment of creation, right? Then knowledge is an inherent part of that creation, so that we can create knowledge. We do create knowledge. We synthesize it. We synthesize it from wisdom, understanding, loving kindness, and judgment.
Sure.
So, the idea that the idioms suggest the same thing, that knowledge already exists, but men haven't found it yet. I think you create that, but don't you?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I kind of see where he's coming from, right? In my interpretation of what he's saying, what he's alluding to is things like mathematical truths, right? You don't discover mean, mathematical formula, right? Like a proof, an elegant proof
Mm-hmm.
is, you may have been the first to identify it, and then there you get discovery of that proof, right? But that proof has actually been there the whole time. You're just the first to put a name to it.
I'm just
Just
thinking about
because,
that. I'm like,
okay, just because you've identified the truth does not mean you've created the truth.
okay.
And that's what he's saying, is that light is the identifier, right? It's the thing that reveals.
Hmm.
But what's been there has always been there and always will be. So it's whether you are aware of it or not. That's, I think, what he's saying.
Okay.
And in that way, I don't think we create that we can create light. Um, you know, we can only use it.
Hmm. And how do we use light?
I think we use light to illuminate those dark areas, right? That truth. We're looking for that truth, and we point the light at it. And the light is, I think, maybe what you're saying, which is that it's a synthesis. It's us trying to use all of that to to identify it. Now I know that it sounds an awful lot like we're creating it, but we're not. I think it's always there.
Uh-huh.
Because while we might be able to create the light that identifies, you can't create the truth. I don't think.
Hmm. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know if that's true or not. Like that we can't. That
I
we
don't
don't
either.
create the truth.
I don't either. I don't.
But I'm
either.
willing
But
to. I'm willing to like suspend disbelief for a little while until we kind of get to the bottom of this.
yeah,
Right.
it feels to me. It feels right. It feels like it feels right. I think that you're right in that. Yes, we create light. We can do that. But what the light shows us, you can't create.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes sense. All right.
That's what
I
I'm
dig
saying.
it. All right.
Okay.
So let's jump over to the three great lights in Freemasonry. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So three great lights in Masonry: square and compasses, and the volume of the sacred law.
Mm-hmm.
What makes them lights? Why are they lights?
Because they're things that illuminate. They are instruments used in the creation of light, right?
Wait,
I'm
you
trying
just
to. I'm
said
trying to.
creating light, right?
Yeah. I said you can create light, but you can't create that which it illuminates.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
All right.
that's my argument. And so you can create light, and so the three great lights are tools that one would use. They're like they're the first basic tools one would use symbolically to begin to create light.
Okay. So how would you use the
So, all
square
right, well, how would I use the square and compasses?
to create light?
Because again, they're symbols, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, but then why
and
not all
so
the symbols? What is like?
uh,
I guess what I'm saying is, what
because
is it
the
about
square,
these three things that make them light as
uh,
opposed
be,
to?
because they're great lights. They're not, um, they're great lights because they're the foundational symbols. How about that? Right?
Okay.
They're the basic foundational symbols of light, or of see that now it gets tough. So I want to say they're they're the foundational symbols of light, but they're not of light. They are tools used to create light, I think.
Hmm.
And so a holy book, that's easy, right? A holy book is used to try and to kind of dive into the depths of that which is dark, which is our mortality, our purpose in life. The big questions, right? And that's an easy one. The square and compasses, it's a tougher one. But I think that in the lessons of the degrees, I think you're given the answers to those things, right? The square is wisdom. It's the symbol of the master of the lodge,
Mm-hmm.
right? The master of the lodge is there to guide you to be the wise leader. I'm trying to think what
Is it
else.
wisdom? Is the square wisdom or virtue?
I would say wisdom. I would say wisdom. I would say the compasses are virtue because you're circumscribing your passions, correct? Which creates virtue.
Hmm. All right, so all right, hold that, and
Okay.
let's go back into Kabbalah for a second, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in Kabbalah, right? So the purpose of Adam Kadmon, right, the prototypical human, representing all of humanity, the purpose of Adam Kadmon is to restore, is to heal the broken vessels, right, and restore light to the world.
Okay.
And the way that you do that is through acts of loving kindness and essentially virtue,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So that makes light,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Sure.
So if the compasses, and so the other thing too is that, like, at the very moment of creation, right before creation happens, there's this thing. It's funny, like a lot of people, who study Kabbalah, they kind of overlook this, but it's so important. I actually do a talk on this, but basically, the moments before creation, the divine energy, which is kind of, sort of swirling around. So we say, in the beginning, the earth was without form and was void, and darkness was on the face of the deep.
Mm-hmm.
The deep is this like swirling mass of, what is the divine. So it's like basically in this model, like God is everything. God is existence and non-existence. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's before there's matter and energy. It's it's everything. And because it's everything, it's Ein Sof,
Mm-hmm.
it's without end, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't, nothing can exist, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's existence and non-existence. So the divine energy kind of makes this space, it contracts itself, and that's called a tzimtzum, which means contraction.
Mm-hmm.
And it contracts itself and it makes the space that allows creation to exist. Right. And then God, and that's the spirit of, it says, and the spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's what that was. That tzimtzum, the contracting. And then God says, let there be light, and there's light. Right. And so my thought is that the compasses is that tzimtzum. Right. Because what God's doing in the moment of creation is contracting himself, limiting himself or herself,
Mm-hmm.
itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's a kind of a point of circumspection, right? You're
Sure.
sort of,
Right.
in fact, you're literally taking a tool and saying, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to carve this space out,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be creation. That's going to be creation. And so that's what the compasses do. The compasses make space for good things to happen. And the square is the act of making those things, right? And the VSL becomes kind of like the blueprint, right? Because we say it's the
Mm-hmm.
guide of our faith. It guides our
Mm-hmm.
faith. Not,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't guide our actions necessarily. It guides our faith.
Mm-hmm.
Guides what
Mhm.
we believe, right?
Right.
So that's kind of how I
It's interesting.
isn't it? It's kind of an interesting, like when you
Yeah.
know, like there are these sort of intersections, and maybe the intersections with Kabbalah are not deliberate. Maybe that's
Right.
just sort of us synthesizing it, but
Mm-hmm.
darn, it's fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Right?
Almost mind blowing, actually.
Almost.
Yeah.
So then I started, I came across this other paper, and it referred to this circular, which I could not find the text for. So if anybody out there has the text for this, I would be super interested in getting a copy and seeing it. But it's called, uh, apparently there was a thing called visible masonry, which
Hmm.
was published in 1775 by the Grand Orient of France. And it says, reference is made to two divisions of the order, namely visible and invisible masonry. By invisible masonry, they denoted that the body of intelligent and virtuous masons who, irrespective of any connection with dogmatic authorities, constituted a mysterious and invisible society of the true sons of light, who scattered over the two hemispheres, were engaged with one heart and soul in doing everything for the glory of the great architect and for the good of their fellow men.
Hmm.
And I think this is kind of where Masonry gets in trouble. I think this is one of those documents that
Hmm.
people looked at and said, "Oh, you see, there's a secret inner order that you
Right.
normal run of the
Sure.
mill
Right.
Masons know nothing about. That has the real secrets,
Right.
right?"
Of
But
course. Yeah.
but
Right.
I think that they were the people who kind of glommed onto that are misinterpreting it, right?
Yeah. Right.
Manly Hall. You gotta love a guy who names their child Manly,
It's a great name.
right? Manly.
Yeah. And from all the pictures I've seen of him,
He was pretty manly.
no,
No, not at
no,
all.
no, no. He was a slight and wiry man. Didn't look like he ever did a caber toss. I'll tell you that.
Needs to work with his bull worker.
Yeah, yeah. There weren't a lot of calluses on those hands.
Um,
Yeah.
but he wrote Freemasonry is a fraternity within a fraternity, an outer organization concealing an inner brotherhood of the elect. It is necessary. I'm already cringing as I read this.
Yeah, right.
It is necessary
Exactly.
to establish the existence of these two separate and yet interdependent orders, the one visible and the other invisible. The visible society is a splendid camaraderie of free and accepted men, enjoined to devote themselves to ethical, educational, fraternal, patriotic, and humanitarian concerns.
Hmm.
The invisible society is a secret and most august fraternity whose members are dedicated to the service of a mysterious arcandrum. I don't know what that means.
Arcanum.
Arcanum, like I'll
Yeah,
spell for
sure.
you. ARCANNUM. That's secret.
Arcanum. Yeah.
Arcadrum.
Okay.
ARCANDRUM.
Okay.
Defined as a secret of mystery, right? So he
Hmm.
says that
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
this inner order that's devoted to a secret or mystery,
Hmm.
right? And so
Okay.
I think what he's saying, keep me honest here. I think what he's saying is the inner invisible society is our inner life, is our contemplation of the symbols and the lessons of Masonry. And that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
it's secret, right?
Yeah.
Is because
Right.
it's
Yeah.
you don't
It's
see
a
it
more
when you
personal
open
journey.
lodge.
Right. No. Yeah. 100%. Right. A lodge meeting. That's that outer fraternity. Right. That's the working together kind of stuff. It's when you go home and you during your introspective times when you're really thinking about it, or if you're reading about Masonic symbolism, things like that, when you're really trying to delve the depths, that the secret order. Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy
Yeah.
that.
So, okay. So now here's where it starts to kind of blow my mind a little bit.
Okay.
So I found this passage that Dr. Matt kind of turned me on to in the Zohar.
Hmm.
Um, and it says this: with the appearance of the light, the universe expanded. With the concealment of the light, the things that exist were created in all their variety. This is the mystery of the act of creation. One who understands will understand.
We'll
You want to
understand.
read this again?
Yeah, yeah. Do it again.
Let
All
me
right.
hit you with it
Yeah,
again.
yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
With the appearance of the light, the universe expanded.
Okay.
With the concealment of the light, the things that exist were created in all their variety. This is the mystery of the act of creation. One who understands will understand.
I clearly don't understand.
I know, isn't this great?
Yeah.
So there's layers of meaning here, right? So
Right.
the first thing is that if you think of light as energy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With the appearance of light, with the appearance of energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? The universe
Sure.
expands,
Right.
right?
Uh-huh. Correct.
As the energy cools into matter, right? It
Everything
goes
is formed.
dark and
Correct.
everything forms from that. So there's that
Correct.
level of
Okay.
meaning,
Yeah.
right?
All right. Okay.
Um, but then it's sort of like
Which is terrible that I hardly grasp that. Go ahead. Keep going.
right?
Yeah. Keep going. Yeah.
But then there's this idea that, you know, uh when you so basically we use the term being brought to light
Mm-hmm.
to mean when we're first exposed to the masonry that happens inside of a lodge room,
Right.
right? The stuff we don't talk about, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And everybody remembers that first time they were brought to light. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very moving, very emotional
Mm-hmm.
experience, very transformative, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really get very much done. Right?
Sure.
If you think
Right.
about
Absolutely.
it, right?
No. Right.
You're
100%.
being exposed,
That's absolutely right.
right?
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I do.
And so
Yeah.
it's later,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Later,
In those dark introspective times. Yeah.
or
Okay.
even in the real
Sure.
world, like when we leave the
Yeah.
lodge. So
Right.
if we think of the lodge as this place of light,
Mm-hmm.
which it is because we put out the three great lights
Sure.
that are
Right.
illuminated by the three lesser lights, right?
Mhm.
That's lodge. When lodge is open, those lights are
Mhm.
shining in their glory.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we put them away. We close lodge, and then we go out into the world, right? And that world is the world of darkness, metaphorically speaking. But that's where we do our work.
Right.
It's not in lodge. We do some work in lodge, but that's not where we do the work of making humanity a better place or a better institution.
Absolutely. Correct. Right.
Right?
All right. I'll buy that. Okay.
So,
All right.
so
I'm still buying what you're selling.
okay, good.
Keep going. Keep
good.
going.
So let's go back to this again. So
Mhm.
with the appearance of the light, the universe expanded.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now just think about it like purely Masonic terms.
Mm-hmm.
With the appearance of the light, your universe expanded.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
With the concealment of the light, the things that exist were created in all the things that exist were created in all their variety.
Mm-hmm.
This is the mystery of the act of creation.
Mm-hmm.
One who understands will understand. The mystery of the act of creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Means you have to channel that energy, right? So if you think of that light as the Ein Sof,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's only until it's channeled through, Chachma and Bina and, Chesed and Netzach and Hod and all those different Sfirot that we then get to Malchut, which is the physical world, right? So the light has to be concealed
Right.
in order for it to manifest in reality,
Okay.
right? So here's my, that's sort of the central question that kind of blew my mind when I read this is why does the light need to be hidden? Basically what the Zohar is saying is that if you don't hide the light, nothing gets created.
Right. Right. But okay, so let me just tease this out, right? So the first thought I have is why does the light have to be hidden? Well, because it's too brilliant. It is too overwhelming and all everything, right? Because the light itself, when we're talking about it in creation terms, right? That moment of creation, the Ein Sof, that is it's everything all at once.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much. That's too much. And so in order for there to be anything that's that we can differentiate, right? That is, you have to mute that.
Yeah.
That would be my first take at it.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
it's
I
too
think so. I think so. I wonder. I
right?
wonder if the things like if we didn't keep this stuff secret,
Mm-hmm.
if we just sort of said, like we went the way of every other fraternity
Mm-hmm.
in history, where they pretty much, aside from college fraternities, where they just
Mm-hmm.
said, what, we'll keep the insurance company and we'll get rid of the ritual, right?
Right. Sure.
We
Mm-hmm.
never, we would be dead and buried already, right? We would not
Oh,
have
absolutely.
survived.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there something about keeping that stuff secret that empowers and enables us to work? Is like, I guess what I'm asking is the reason that we, like, I guess so one of the questions that we all ask and everybody asks is, why do you keep stuff secret? Why bother? Right? And that I've never really gotten a satisfactory answer out of that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I kind of like doing it, but why do we do it? Like, why is it necessary to keep that stuff secret?
Well, because all right, so and I've always heard from people that the secret, that the whole act of keeping things secret is symbolic itself,
Uh
right?
huh.
And while it's very real, we expect you to actually keep the secret. The reason that you're keeping it a secret and the act that you're doing is symbolic. And perhaps what that's symbolic of is keeping the light down,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I'm starting to kind of come to that right now. So the other thing that I
Yeah.
remember hearing is, and I've heard this several times, and I can't, I couldn't attribute it to any one place.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard that the real Masonic secret
Mm-hmm.
is you can't communicate it.
Hmm.
It's
Right.
pre-verbal. Like you could even
Right.
if you wanted to, like, sit
Right.
down with
It's
a profane.
ineffable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ineffable.
Yeah.
Like the true name of God,
Yeah.
right? Okay. All right. Hmm.
And maybe it's symbolic of that. Maybe that's like if we were suddenly
Yeah, that's
able.
interesting. That's an interesting. No, no, no. That's a really, really interesting idea that you've hit on, right? Yeah, okay. So my only problem with that idea is that is such a Judeo-centric idea,
Like, tell me more.
because I mean, in other religions, um, the name of God is totally effable. you know,
Yeah.
there's we say it all the time. Hey, there's old God over there. We've named him and we're done with it. But in the Jewish tradition, the name of God is ineffable, the true name of God. Other religions haven't really stuck with that whole idea, right? And in fact, Christianity has said, no, the true name of God is Jesus, as represented in the Trinity. See what I'm saying? And so, and that's its central idea. So if you were to think that the symbolism of keeping our ritual secret was symbolic of the fact that God's true name is ineffable, and therefore this, matching that symbolism together, I don't know if I buy that.
Okay. So let's peel back that onion for a second.
Yeah.
I would say that whatever we call that, right, isn't descriptive enough to really be like the name, right?
But again, I push back here because I think that is a that's a Judeo-centric view of it, right? Because you're looking at it with your Jewish glasses on, where I'm looking at it with my Catholic glasses on that say, nah, dude, guy's got a name. It's
What?
Jesus. We're done. It's over.
Well, but
And
Jesus
there is
is
no true name of God,
well,
right?
but okay, but all right.
You know,
So
he's not gonna. We're not gonna get there, and he's gonna have a "Hello, my
for
name is" tag. I know he's not gonna have a "Hello, my name is" tag, and we're gonna be fine. Like, oh, it was Jehovah. I mean, I think I don't know. I think that is, and that's a very Kabbalistic too. I mean, it's not just Jewish; it's very Kabbalistic
Mhm.
Approach to that subject. I just don't know if you can put those two together.
Well,
I feel better about the light and the darkness metaphor better. I like that much better than I like the true name of God one.
well,
I think
here's the thing. I'm less worried because here's the thing. Like God does have a name, we just don't pronounce it.
Well, right, exactly.
Right?
It's ineffable. Sure.
You know, but it's not really ineffable. I mean,
Okay.
you could I mean, if you read the word, it's there's a word there, right?
Okay. All right.
I think what the Kabbalists would say is that word isn't even the true name of God, because
That's right.
when the Moses stands at the burning bush, he says,
Right.
I am
Right.
what I am and will be.
Correct.
Right? In other words, don't worry about what my name is,
Right.
Pick something
Listen, wise guy,
right?
I'm a burning bush.
Right?
You're talking to him.
Yes. Right?
Maybe I should ask the questions.
And in Judaism, we have lots of names, right? We have Elohim and El and El Shaddai and
Yep.
and Yahweh and we have tons of names, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
None of them are the name, right? But here's the thing: in Christianity too, right? Jesus is 1/3 of God, right?
Right.
Okay, so that in other words, the part of God that became incarnate, right, has a name. We give it that name, and even that name has multiple names, right? You call him
right.
Emmanuel. You call him the Savior. You call him Christ.
Right.
You call him right.
Sure.
But it doesn't describe, like the semiotics fail, right? It doesn't describe the true nature of that deity. And even if you go into like Islam, right, with Allah, right? Allah just means God. It just means the word God.
Right.
Right. And then if you go into even the Hindus believe that, all the devas, all the gods and goddesses, right, are just different faces of this true God that is ineffable. Like it's
right.
They call it Brahman, but it
Right.
just means that thing,
Right.
Or as Mel Brooks used to say, something bigger than Phil. Right.
Right.
This 5,000-year-old man. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't. It's not so much the word that I think is important. It's sort of it's sort of being able to describe it. In fact, the Kabbalists, they call it Ein Sof because, in fact, they even acknowledge that Keter, which is at the top of the tree of life, is beyond human comprehension, beyond human understanding.
Right.
Right. But we get glimpses. Like that's the whole mystical thing, is that we get glimpses of what the true nature is if we work hard at it, and every once in a while we get lucky, right? And we get a little glimpse of like what that true nature is. And so that I think is kind of like the true Masonic secret, right? Which is that
there you
even
go.
Even if I wanted to tell you, I don't think I could do it justice. I don't think I could tell it to you. You have to internalize it. You have to spend years of study and attending lodge and going to degrees over and over and over again, and it starts to build in you so that hopefully, over the course of, several years, you have a sense of what that is, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'll buy that. All right. Okay.
And until you do, you're not much use as a Mason. If you're listening to this, Jason has a very skeptical look on his face.
That's a bit harsh, don't you think?
I'm asking.
I'm just saying, it just feels a little harsh, right? That you've got no use until you've started on that journey. It's a
As a
little,
Mason,
yeah, it's a little much.
you think?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think it's a bit much. I think that I don't know. I don't know the right way to say it, but I think that that's a heck of a lot of responsibility that you've just shoved on, on every Mason, right? Like, well, if you're a real serious Mason, you're not worth it as a Mason unless you're on this much more deeper mystical journey. Because here's my thing, right? Is that I think that let's go back to what our pal Manley said, right? Is that there are these two fraternities, and they are. What did he say? Did he say they're interdependent on each other? Is that what he said?
Yeah, let's see. Two separate and two separate and yet interdependent orders.
Interdependent, right? And that is true, right? It is interdependent, and so the thing is that it's okay if you're not there yet, if you don't want to even start on that journey, because you shouldn't unless you're prepared for it. Because to take that journey lightly is to not take it at all. And so I think that there's a very valid, like, I can actually see someone saying like, not into it. And I'd be like, I respect that. Good for you. And they're like, yeah, I got enough right here, with my friends. We got pancake night. I'm good with that. I'm happy. Sure. Whatever makes you happy. So I think that there's the outer tier of Masonry. That's fine. They're still Masons. I wouldn't. I just thought that it's a little harsh that you're not worth it.
Well, so I'm not. I'm sort of taking this a little bit more metaphorically. In other words, I don't think that there's two. I don't think that there's actually two orders, right? I think that there's that inner and the outer, right? And so I feel like
that's exactly what I think.
If you decide that you're, let's just say for the hell of it that you've decided that you're not gonna pursue that inner thing at all, right? You're just gonna pursue the outer, the camaraderie and stuff like that.
Sure. Okay.
I can get that at the men's club of my synagogue. I don't need to join Masonry for that. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure, but you've at least dipped your toe into that little deeper end, right? Because the ritual gave you a start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've dipped your toe in at least.
Yeah.
So you've got more than you've got at the men's club or the country club, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because Bob the golf pro isn't going to teach you anything good about life. Or any kind of or even allude to a deep truth of life.
Yeah.
Unless he's an exceptional golf pro, but he's probably not. And so
unless he's Bagger Vance.
Right, yeah. That's what I am getting there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Ty Webb.
But
Ty Webb understood the secrets of the universe clearly. But that's what I'm saying is that I think that, you're still Mason because you still get at least a little bit of it, right? You still get some, and some is better than none.
Yeah. I'm not saying that we have to actively pursue both things, but I'm just saying that
right.
being exposed to that light and then letting that light sort of cool inside you. And that's what allows you to sort of do the work of Masonry. And without it, without that light, you're not a Mason.
All right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's a better statement.
Abe Metz says 42.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and JC Negron says on social media, he says many brothers spent their lives going through Masonry, but Masonry never gets through them.
Hey, that's totally true, right? And
Yeah.
I think that that's what Manly P. Hall is saying there, right? I think that's what that whole allusion to the inner and the outer is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would agree. And I think, the thing is if I like I said, if I hadn't stumbled upon that that well, actually, it wasn't. I didn't stumble upon it. I mean, Daniel
Right.
Matt like said, "Yeah, hey, look at this,"
Hey, here, read this right
Hey,
here.
read this,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, that's really
What a
like,
hell of a weekend, by the way.
what's that?
If that was like just one little tiny part of your weekend with
Yeah,
him.
yeah. So they had this. He did a lecture on Friday night. They had like Shabbos dinner, which is synagogue food. Um, you know,
Hmm.
chicken tastes like chicken. Uh,
Chicken
and
prepared separately from the eggs.
chicken and yeah, so they had that, and he gave that lecture, and then he did the sermon the
Hmm.
next day in services, and that was
Hmm.
pretty interesting. And then he did another talk in the afternoon about um he was talking a lot about the feminine and masculine sides of God,
Hmm.
and like the thing about Kabbalah, which makes I think a lot of rabbis uncomfortable, is like there's sex everywhere in Kabbalah. I mean, Kabbalah, like the whole idea of
Right.
creation is the
Sure.
union
Right.
of the male
Yeah.
principle and the female principle together, right? And
Sure.
so
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
yeah, a lot of rabbis just have a really hard time with it, just because it's and a lot
Sure.
of and
Yeah.
it turns out a lot of people who were attending the lecture had a
Hmm.
hard time with it. Like,
Yeah.
wait, God is a female? Like no, God is God, but there's a
Right.
female
Yeah.
part of God and the male,
Right.
and
Yeah.
in Judaism we call the female part of God Shekhinah,
Hmm.
right? And or or as the Scottish rite likes to call it, the Shekinah.
That's so great.
The Shekinah. Um,
That means that she's not fully. She's kinda.
that's right.
She kinda.
Kinda.
She kinda.
Yeah. So, but the
That's
Shekhinah is
terrible.
the we also refer to her as the Sabbath bride, right? And there was a sort of an ancient precursor to that, which was Asherah, right? Who is sort of the Middle Eastern equivalent of the goddess Astarte,
Okay.
right? And so eventually, in ancient times, they sort of conflated her with like God's wife, like, oh, this is El and his lovely
Yeah.
wife
Sure.
Asherah, and
Right.
right.
See, she has that little gold name tag on that.
That's right. Hello, my name is
Hello,
Asherah.
Ashra,
Um, uh,
wife
and then
of Mason over here.
yeah, and then eventually, like they sort of synthesize it into sort of this idea that this is another side
Right.
of the divine, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, and so yeah, so that was like the first 2 days was kind of like getting people's heads around that,
Mm-hmm.
and and then the third one on Sunday, this is where I actually went and got my book signed.
That's awesome.
Which was funny because he's like he like I have this my first volume of the Zohar has been it's like dog-eared and it's
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
highlighted and I've got
Yeah, yeah,
sketches in
absolutely.
there and stuff like that.
Right.
And he's like
Yeah.
he's looking at this book and he's because he's selling the books like
Yeah. Right.
on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at the book and he's like, this is a red book, and I'm like, yeah, like he's like,
That's why
there's
you
sketches
sell
in
'em,
here.
right?
He thought that I had just bought it. I'm
Oh,
like, no,
right.
no, this is my book.
Yeah.
Like,
No. I want to write.
I did
my
the
book.
Pokemon thing. I collected them all. I've got,
Yeah. That's really great. That's cool. That's really, really cool.
yeah. So that then he talked about Kabbalah and the Big Bang and sort
Yeah,
of
that's
the
cool.
similarities.
Sure.
And that was one of the things like that, when he read this passage in and the way he was kind of interpreting it was that this is energy kind of becoming matter, and matter is the things that are in creation.
That's cool.
Right.
Wow, that's really cool.
but I used it for more noble and glorious purposes.
Yeah. As you are wont to do.
As I want to do.
As you are wont to do. That's great. All right. Well, that was good. I enjoyed that. I really did. I think that's a really cool way to think about it, actually. And I think that's really fun. And it's something that we don't really think about too much, right? In depth, and we don't really explore these, because, light is a pretty basic symbol, right?
It is.
But those really basic symbols are often the hardest ones to kind of crack and to get true insight into. So I think that's really cool. That's awesome. That was fun.
I think so too. Abe says, hang on a second. The Shekhinah is what comes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim when the Kohen Gadol goes in. Yeah, and so Abe, that's it's a little too much cook for you, my friend.
Yeah, it is. It is. All
right, so
I'll get you a tissue, Abe.
So the Kodesh, Kodesh HaKadoshim is just the Holy of Holies.
Oh, okay.
That's what that means.
Okay, I got that.
Kind of like
Kohen
the Knights
Gadol,
of Kadosh.
And the Kohen Gadol is the high priest.
The high priest, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Which is true, Abe. That's absolutely true. That but there's all these different aspects of where the Shekhinah kind of shows up, and so there's and you also have to look at too. There are times when the because Hebrew nouns have masculine and feminine versions. Sometimes gender switches. I mean, and the Kabbalists, sort of peel this stuff back, using the Pardes methodology. They would peel this back and say, oh, well, this is evidence of the Shekhinah,
right?
Versus evidence of he gives the I think it's like Hashem HaKodesh, the holy name, that's considered the masculine side of the divine. So, So the Shekinah.
The Shekinah.
So JC also says, we're one of the inheritors of the mysteries of ancient times. We're not just a fraternal organization or a charitable organization. We are one of many mystery schools. The custodians of an ancient science. It's encoded in our ritual. That knowledge has been used to restart civilizations in the past. If we don't preserve it, will. And that's where he cut off. JC, okay. Finish your sentence. But
right.
But yeah, no, I agree, and I think that the key word that JC points out is that it's encoded in our ritual. Right.
Yeah.
And unless we decode it, he says we'll lose it. Unless we decode it, it doesn't do us very much good. Right. In other words, we have to take light and shine light and then turn the light off so that now we can internalize it and start to use it again.
Yeah. Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mike showed up just in time for us to
sign off. Thanks for coming, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Well, at least he came. At least he came.
He did.
Yeah.
Woolsey said your punishment for being tardy is making the pancakes, and I think that's fitting.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, listen. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you to our executive producers. Without you, the show does not happen.
Thank you, guys.
We've recently restarted the development of the Android app, so that hopefully that'll be coming out in the next few weeks or so.
Fun.
And let's see, what else did I want to say? We're a little bit behind in the Ex Libris selections, but we're gonna do like a double batch this week. So if you're an executive producer and you don't know what Ex Libris is, it's a collection of over 2,400 esoteric texts that library is being made available to. We're kind of doing it WikiLeaks style. We're doing drops of documents.
That's terrible.
And yeah, I know. but yeah, so we're doing it. We're releasing it gradually. But if you become an executive producer by going to our Patreon page, it's patreon.com/X-Oriente. Making a pledge, you will get access to this library and all the documents in it as well. And thank you to everybody who came to the social media party. Hey, if you liked it, let us know. If this has just made your head hurt, let us know that too, because maybe we'll come back and revisit this, because it seems like a pretty deep topic, and it would probably be a good idea to get some experts, maybe even Dr. Matt himself. Which would be, cool.
Great.
Oh, and by the way, Dr. Matt does a Zohar course. It's an online course.
Cool.
He does live video on the Zoom platform. It's on Tuesday nights. If you're interested, drop us a line at xoriente@gmail.com and let me know, and I'll forward you the information. It does cost, I think it's $100 or something like that, but you get access to all the lectures. So
pretty cool.
And he's a smart dude.
Yeah, it's
really
cool.
Really fun to listen to. So so thanks Abe for showing up. Thanks JC. Thanks Mike. Thanks to everybody who showed up. I think we had somebody from the Philippines pop in.
Awesome.
Thanks for doing that. And we will see you next week.
Thanks everybody. See you next week.
All right.